Hello and welcome to HBM's Crypto-Corner for Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. We have a few things to talk about, so let's get started. First of all, Lauren Coleman has commissioned an artist to do some artwork for his museum. Commission. Cool collection of cryptids for Coleman. As part of the Kickstarter campaign for the ufology Tarot project, one of the rewards offered to the highest contributors to the campaign was an original illustration commissioned by yours truly. One of the three people who chose that reward was Lauren Coleman, the legendary cryptozoology researcher who's been featured in countless TV shows and documentaries. I became acquainted with Lauren many years ago, back when I was just tipping my toes in the murky online waters of the paranormal pond. During those years, Lauren was a regular contributor for the website Crypto Mundo, which became, through its comments section, a large and dynamic community of people with varying degrees and opinions with regards to what is known as cryptids, animals that are either considered to be purely mythological or currently extinct, but whose existence is somewhat supported by folklore and or eyewitness testimonies. Whereas the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot are the most popular among these creatures, cryptozoology as a discipline, skeptics would call it pseudoscience, covers a much wider spectrum of animals, including those which manage to jump off from the pages of campfire tales to the annals of orthodox zoology. For his commission, Lauren had not only a very specific concept in mind, but also a bigger purpose than just coming up with a pretty picture. For the last 6 months, he has been hard at work negotiating the purchase of a new location for his International Cryptozoology Museum in Bangor, Maine. Lauren had designed a classic 1945-era building designed in the streamlined, modern, architectural style, and he wanted the building to be in the background. The building at 490 Broadway, Bangor, Maine, then. How the building looks now, despite some neglect, and hasn't lost its modernist Art Deco style. Google Maps became invaluable for this project. Lauren wanted to be featured in the center of the image, surrounded by a whole bunch of cryptid creatures. The dodo, the Komodo dragon, the thylacine or Tasmanian tiger, the pygmy hippo, the Seola, the mountain gorilla, the okapi, and the imperial woodpecker. And that's this right here. And if that wasn't challenging enough, Lauren also asked me if I could draw the commission mimicking the style of the famous XX, is that 20th century artist? Mexican artist Miguel Covarrubias, who during his prolific, albeit short career, created many illustrations for several books and American magazines. Covarrubias also had a passion for travel, and he had a chance to visit many remote locations in the Pacific and East Asia. Aside from his artistic career, he also became a historian and anthropologist. Thumbnail sketch to study the composition. Initially, I had thought of putting my dodo standing on top of my sleepy hippo. Also, Lauren was going to be holding a Chizar nightjar on the palm of his hand, but I convinced him this bird wasn't sexy enough for our purposes, and we opted for the more colorful imperial woodpecker instead. Lauren Coleman in the style of Miguel Achemeco Covarrubias. Preliminary pencil studies in which I attempted to capture the flat and almost cubist-like style of Covarrubias, such a style which was also characteristic of other mid-century cartoonists like Al Hirschfeld, transformed the face and body of the subject into a fluid composition of curves and straight lines. It is a very bold approach to caricature which has influenced many modern artists and TV cartoon shows. Think Gendy Tartakovsky and his Cartoon Network programs. It is most effective when the person being caricatured is very famous, and also when they don't mind having their face turned into a Picasso-like abstract piece. Approved composition using a third-party image provided by Lauren as the billing reference. The image was corrected using the Google Maps Street View as reference. Production production screen grabs. Here you can see me experimenting with some brushes to see which ones would work best for the many fake textures I needed to put into each animal. Lauren's commission signified a return to color for me in a way. After a whole year of dealing with the sort of monochromatic style I had employed for the creation of the tarot deck, I knew that for this project to work I needed to approach it more like a traditional painting, which is why I chose the gouache type brushes available in the Pro version of the Sketchbook app I use for most of my illustration commissions, achieving the fur-like texture in some of the animals, like the Saola in the lower left of the gallery above. Also involved a more painstaking approach of painting each hair strand with a sharp and rough pencil-like brush, just like many traditional artists do on paper when they start with painting first, gouache or watercolors for instance, and they finish up the details with color pencils. It's a pain in the ass, but most effective when done right. Close-up of the dodo, one of the most difficult animals to paint in the Komodo dragon. For the dragon's scales, I cheated it by way of adding to its body a layer with a honeycomb-like grid. Not the real shape of the Komodo's actual scales, but hey, this is a caricature, not a taxonomy illustration. Also noticed when studying Covarrubias' work that he switched between a more abstract and cartoony style to a more realistic one, depending on the purpose of the illustration. Since I knew Lauren's commission would be utilized to educate the viewer about cryptozoology as a field of study, I decided to make the animals not too abstract and more recognizable. Close-up of my gorilla, in which you can notice the subtle cartoon-like facial expression I chose for him. As is often the case in my artwork, I opted to eliminate all the outlines of the shapes and just kept a minimum of line art to better describe the elements in the heads and bodies, e.g. the mouth, nose, and wrinkles around the eyes, which were drawn with a textured brush that mimics the look of a waxy pencil. Notice also the fur and the arms, which were accomplished with a rough, bristled brush and then detailed on top with the pencil-like brush. All the brushes were given an extra canvas-type texture to further making it look as if the illustrations had been done with traditional media. Unlike Covarrubias, though, I was very careful in giving all my animals and elements within my composition a somewhat realistic, volumetric look to them, meaning they are not painted as flat patches of color within the surface of the canvas. I guess this is the same conundrum encountered by artists commissioned to create the artwork of DVD covers for Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And even though those cartoons were designed as flat 2D characters, leaving them flat in a promotional piece feels wrong somehow. Okay, it's a little hard to read that, so I'm not going to worry about reading that or that. This commission took a long time to complete, one of my longest illustrations yet. And even though there were times when I felt I should have taken a simpler approach, Covarrubias, for example, never bothered with the laws of perspective and always left his buildings as if they were drawn by a child, whereas I did draw the International Cryptozoology building with a realistic two-point perspective to make it more recognizable. I feel the end result speaks for itself. Lauren Coleman was very pleased when I sent him the final result, and I hope that one day in the future I may have the chance to make a pilgrimage to the International Cryptozoology Museum, where I'll get the chance to contemplate an art piece painted by myself around Lauren's valuable collected items, a testament to my shared love of impossible creatures. The dodo bird is not a true cryptid, since no one has ever claimed to have seen them after they were wiped out by Dutch explorers from the island of Mauritius. However, there are currently plans to bring them back from extinction using modern genetic technology, which is obviously a test to see if science will be able to bring back other extinct animals like the thylacine or even the woolly mammoth. Update 15.3.23. My friend Lauren has been quick to correct me about the true cryptid nature of the dodo. According to him, there were several unconfirmed sightings of the beloved rotund bird long after it became officially extinct, which was in 1662. Most recent confirmed sighting times of the dodo are 1662, 1638, 1631, 1628, 1611, 1607, 1602, 1601, and 1598. An escaped slave named Simon claimed to have seen a dodo as recently as 1674. The purported sighting in 1674 cannot be ruled out on the basis of extinction time alone. If a sighting in 1674 is included in the record, the estimated extinction time is extended only modestly to 1700, actually narrows the confidence interval to 1679-1790, from a 2003 article in Nature. So there you have it, folks. The dodo was encrypted, at least for a little while. Personally, I'm as fascinated by the possible existence of these wonderful creatures as for the many reasons why people are so passionate about trying to prove they are indeed real. For Bigfoot, for example, I feel there is a certain subconscious yearning for a return to nature. And in the famous hairy giant, we see a romanticized idea of the man in the forest in perfect balance with the landscape it inhabits. There might also be a certain preoccupation with the rapid destruction of ecosystems in our planet hidden behind the hunt for Bigfoot as well. I mean, could you imagine how tragic it would be if Bigfoot actually went extinct before we actually found it? So this is some pretty cool stuff going on here. A commissioned piece of artwork featuring the prospective new International Cryptozoology Museum building. Very cool. Here's something else interesting. 7th century lodges monetizing the monster and selling to Disney. Meet the people whose businesses are thriving off the legend of Loch Ness. Since Nessie first made herself known to locals back in 565 AD, Loch Ness has become as much a brand as it is a very big body of water. People from across the globe flock to see it and, once they have been suitably awed, leave with armfuls of souvenirs. These take endless, weird, and wonderful forms, from Nessie air fresheners and ladles to tartan underwear to actual bottled, untreated loch water, marked not for human consumption, of course. But many have used the loch as a foundation from which to build something more than tourist mementos. Situated around Scotland's second largest loch are a whole host of businesses who lean into its stature. We spoke to a number of them about what the loch means to them and why they chose the area to set up shop. Foyer's Lodge. As soon as Anna Lowe and Phil Crow walked through the front entrance of Foyer's Lodge, something clicked. We were used to going in and out and out lots of different buildings, but as soon as we walked in through the door, this one just had a special feeling, said Anna. All of the grounds were completely overgrown, needed a lot of work, but it immediately grabbed our attention, and the situation really was the main draw. Anna and Phil had been looking UK-wide for a building to renovate and turn into a business back in 2016, and came across the lodge by scrolling Rightmove while on a trip to Nairn. 2 years later, they welcomed their first guests to the hotel they created on the banks of the loch, with people from all over the world choosing to lay their heads there for the first season. Luxury hotel sleeps up to 18 guests at a time. Since it was the loch that ultimately drew the pair to the building, they decided to honor it within. Everything is geared towards what's outside the window, said Anna. The beds are located where you can lie and look out on the loch. I've decorated with colors that are synonymous with the outside, like dark blues, greens, and purples for the water, the pine trees, the birch trees. There's not much between the edge of our garden and the water, and because we're elevated up, it looks like you can reach out and touch it. The luxury hotel has houses up to 18 adults at a time, with group size limited to 4 so that all guests feel at home and no one commands the space. Anna and Phil reopened the renovated lodge back in 2018. Local legend has it that there was an inn on the site in the 600s where cattle drovers used to stop. When General Wade was building the military road along the loch, it is claimed he had his site office there because it had the best view of the loch. The building as it stands today was built in 1863 by a businessman from Edinburgh, and Phil and Anna have tried to stay true to its original features. Phil said, "From the outset, we wanted to create something that was calm, relaxing, and an escape from the everyday hustle and bustle of life." Anna added, "It's all old worldly. We've got antique furniture. In our sitting room, we have chess and backgammon boards. We play vintage music. There are nods to all the building's different eras." The blues and greens in the interior of Foyer's Lodge marry with what is outside. As many stories fill the lodge's visitors' book as fill the bookshelves dedicated to Loch Ness. Books were left to them from a late Loch Ness fanatic's Hall of Memorabilia, so guests can learn more about the water as they gaze out at it. "We are not a touristy nod to Loch Ness," said Anna, "but we are here, and we will never ignore that." Though the couple understands people may find themselves at Foyer's Lodge because of its location, they hope to influence their reason for coming back. Loch Ness is iconic and a globally known phenomenon. For many of our guests, it really is a bucket list destination that they have dreamt about visiting, said Anna. Lazy Saturday afternoons amidst beautiful Highland scenery. When are you coming to stay? We don't have one specific type of guest. We get lots of different guests who come to us for a variety of reasons. Phil added, but with every guest, the loch plays a part, especially for the people who are coming to stay with us for the first time. Our goal is for people to come for the loch and then come back for Foyer's Lodge. To find out more about Foyer's Lodge or to book your stay after they reopen on March 17th, go to Facebook, Instagram, or FoyersLodge.co.uk. Loch Ness Water. No matter how many times he drove the length of the loch, whether in the backseat as a child or behind the wheel himself, John Ogue just couldn't figure it out. Why was no one bottling Loch Ness water? So that's what he did. John and the Loch Ness Water Tartan. I went to Environmental Health in 2012 because I thought if anyone was going to stop me, it would be them, he said. But it was the total opposite. They were just as excited about it as I was. After 4 years of research and development, we've launched the product in 2015. Loch Ness Water extracts water from the loch, transports it to its premises in Dingwall, puts it through 10 different filters, through a UV filter, and then into glass bottles. Each tank is tested by Scottish Water, so it is more than safe to drink. John said, "Everyone comments on how soft, crisp, and clean the water tastes. That's after they've asked, where do you get the water from, which is a common one. Smaller 100 milliliter bottles are made specifically for whiskey drinkers, another big market for the brand. John said it's ideal for whiskey because of the way we filter the water. Once it comes out through the system, we're left with a neutral water with a pH level of 7. We've had whiskey experts tell us that when they added our water to their whiskey, it actually released more flavor." Loch Ness Water is sold to customers around the world. You can't have a Scottish whiskey without the world's most famous water to go along with it. Like most who live and work around it, John himself is fascinated by Loch Ness. "Loch Ness has always been a part of my life, the stories, the beauty of it," he said. "You feel this thing when you see it, something in your heart. It takes your breath away." Its connection to the legend has meant John's Loch Ness Monster water is sold all around the world and has even attracted the attention of some extremely famous names. The further away you go from Loch Ness, the easier it is to sell the product, said John. I never had to go out and seriously sell this product. It holds its own. I even met with the main buyer for Walt Disney, who was desperate to get the product in Florida and on the cruise ships. He wasn't able to deliver on the scale they needed at the time, but the expansion since has meant John hopes to revisit the deal soon. Even Mickey Mouse isn't quite as notable as another customer, though. We had a German couple email to buy 12 bottles of the 100 milliliter water, explained John. They had gotten married in Loch Ness and were buying the water to baptize their child. Find out more about Loch Ness Water on Facebook, Instagram, or at ness.scott. Great Glen Distillery. John isn't the only one who found a way to utilize the water itself. Great Glen Distillery is located in Drumnadrochit. It is Scotland's smallest craft distillery. Just down from the Clansman Hotel that proudly overlooks Loch Ness is a borehole that marks the water's first step in its journey to becoming a bottle of Great Glen gin. Getting ready for the hustle and bustle of the busy season ahead. We're ramping up production to ensure that you get your hands on our amazing products. Stay tuned for exciting updates. Simone Peter, a brand ambassador and trainee distiller at Great Glen, said, "We use the water in our distillation process. Once it's finished distillation, it's still at about 84%, so that we then dilute that to 43%. With more water from Loch Ness, it plays a big part. Combining the water with the likes of honeysuckle, Scottish heather, red sorrel, and frankincense, the distillery produces its Great Glen gin, classic Great Glen gin, as well as a pink version of the newer Inverness gin. The distillery was set up by Daniel Campbell and Adam Dwyer in 2020, a welcome outcome of lockdown boredom. In the few years since it has attracted a global fan base, punctuated by tourists that fill the region every year. We are right by the Loch Ness Exhibition Center, so we get the tourism from that, says Simone. Pretty much everybody knows the loch, so it's a huge benefit to us that we use water from there and are based on its banks. We get a lot of tourists from all walks of life, and it's a nice thing for them to take away. It would be impossible to enjoy a temple without noticing the gin's connection to the loch, with its name on the labels and tabs on the top of each bottle. The first 100 bottles of gin were dunked to the deepest part of the loch. The business itself owes so much to the loch that it dunked its first 100 bottles into its depths, resulting in a highly sought-after collector's edition. Simone moved to the area around 2 years ago and can't quite believe her life now revolves around the spectacle that is Loch Ness. From our balcony you can see the loch, she explained. I see it every single day and it's quite special. I think people can take it for granted, but it's lovely. I feel very lucky to be here. Find out more about Great Glen Distillery on Facebook and Instagram, or book a tour at greatglendistillery.co.uk. Mr. Loch Ness. There are a few who know just how great an impact the loch could have on business as Mr. Loch Ness himself. In fact, you could say Willie Cameron is partially responsible for marketing the loch in a way that has benefited many through the years. The loch has been my life and livelihood socially, commercially, business-wise for the last 50 years, he said. Everybody loves a mystery. Everybody loves something that's totally unexplainable. Loch Ness is a brand that, by default, rather than design, is as big a brand as Madonna, Coca-Cola. It's internationally known. Willie was branded Mr. Loch Ness by Executive Magazine decades ago, and it stuck. His face has become synonymous with the loch in documentaries, film, and the tourism industry as a whole. The 71-year-old is founding director of marketing for Visit Loch Ness, founding director of the Cobbs Group, and founder of Loch Ness Marketing, all of which have been built around the legend of the loch. He said, "More and more people are coming here every year, and they are overall spending more and staying longer. There is so much here, from things to do to local businesses, and it changes every day. In my mind, we are a jewel in Scotland's tourism crown. I can't explain how we've done it. The loch is just there. It's there to use. We've been lucky enough to have been blessed with a story and a phenomenon that is second to none, and we have taken full advantage of it. Willie has made it one of his many goals to take the Locke story around the world, which has been made a little easier with the fact he is closer to it than most. My late father had a very unusual sighting of something in 1955, he explained. So, on the basis of telling his story, we went from a local to an international organization. Being Mr. Loch Ness, who better to ask the age-old question, is there or isn't there a monster that lurks in the depths of the loch? The answer, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if we found out and globally proved tomorrow that there's nothing there, believe you me, 50% of people would still believe there is, he said. We're in a win-win situation no matter what happens. It's a success story that is beyond all comprehension in terms of business. So, a very good story, a very big cool story about some of the businesses at Loch Ness, which are profiting from the loch and probably from the monster itself. Now, here's something interesting. FOIA request for Bigfoot evidence found during eruption of Mount St. Helens. That's a lot of pages for something that supposedly doesn't exist. The eruption of Mount St. Helens was one of the most catastrophic events in American history. But what was less known until now is that there is potential evidence the eruption also had a profound impact on the Bigfoot population. A Freedom of Information Act request was made to the United States Department of Agriculture for any information on Sasquatch or Bigfoot bodies that were discovered or recovered just after the eruption. Quiero quedarme contigo de... Hang on just a second, folks. Having some issues here. Well, I thought there was a TikTok video here, but I guess not. Unfortunately, no direct data was located regarding any cryptid species. However, two independent sources created by researchers outside the Forest Service did have 50 pages of documents regarding the body disposal methods for animals killed in the eruption, which could contain information pointing to any deceased animals that may have been unidentifiable. Some believe the elusive cryptid has been known by some time, offering proof of the United States Air Force survival map indicating Bigfoot territory and what to do if encountering one. Should one be so lucky as to meet the elusive cryptid, it is important to capture video or photos of the creature, remaining as still and quiet as possible. It is also important to note the location and time of the encounter, as well as any specific details or characteristics of the creature. Physical evidence such as hair samples, footprints, or scat should also be collected if possible. Natural disaster cleanup efforts may offer a unique opportunity to locate specimens of Bigfoot and other cryptids. Disasters such as volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and hurricanes can create unique conditions that make it easier to find remains of rare or elusive species. While the existence of Bigfoot remains unproven, the possibility of finding new evidence through secondary channels, such as wildlife recovery, may offer a new path for cryptozoologists to hunt for everybody's favorite cryptid. Now, I've heard this for years about supposedly dead Sasquatch found at Mount St. Helens. There's nothing to confirm or refute that, so it remains an open question. Were the dead Sasquatch found at Mount St. Helens after the eruption? It's a good question, and if the government knows, they're not talking. So we really don't know for sure, but it's interesting, and nonetheless. Campers in northwestern Florida are terrorized by a strange creature. Was it Bigfoot or a skunk ape? Florida Bigfoot, y'all, says the woman in the latest viral Bigfoot video. She's probably referring to the skunk ape, a legendary Florida cryptid described as a large, bipedal, ape-like creature with a horrible stench. Many sightings have been reported in Florida and neighboring states over the years. This video purports to be from campers in Torreya State Park, a wilderness area in the Florida Panhandle west of Tallahassee. According to the caption, it was taken by campers after they were terrified by unearthly shrieks in the night and having rocks and other objects thrown into their campsite. The park is a particularly popular spot for skunk ape sightings. Apparently, the video isn't working for some reason. Maybe if I refresh the page.
This Bigfoot footage. This was recorded by the Browns, a father and son duo who were in Torreya State Park in Florida camping back in 2012. They stated that their campground was surrounded by a creature that was doing these terrifying noises, growls, knocking, and they decided to start recording. And this is what they captured on their night vision camera. What do you think it is? Is this a credible footage of a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch? Keep in mind, they did have this tested and it was confirmed not to be CGI. So what do you think? I think this is amazing. And that's the footprint that they caught the following morning of the creature. But like, post, comment, repost, let me know. Amazing. Florida Bigfoot, y'all.
Unfortunately, there's not much to the video. Supposedly, the campers captured footage of the creature through a night vision camera, but the clip shown could be just about anything. There is also separate footage supposedly taken on the same camping trip that displays the large footprint in the mud. The woman who posted the video claims the video was analyzed by unnamed sources who verified it was not CGI. We didn't even know that was a job you could have. Every time I watch one of these, a few more of my brain cells dies, one viewer scoffs. And we're in agreement. There's so little context here that it's impossible to tell what we're looking at. Perhaps it's not, as the mysterious analyzers claimed, CGI, but that doesn't mean it's not a dude in a monkey suit. What do you think? Well, it's either a genuine Sasquatch or it is a person in a monkey suit. Who knows? The Stacy Brown footage has been analyzed by just about every credible Bigfoot researcher. And some say it's real, some say it's a hoax. I don't know. I kind of fall somewhere in the middle. It's interesting and good footage, but I don't know. Some think it's a hoax, or some believe it's a hoax, but I don't know what to think.
Hey,
Okay,
y'all.
this is the video I was supposed to show earlier, referring to the possibility of Sasquatch bodies at Mount St. Helens.
Meyer, the paranormal chick here. So today we are going to talk Bigfoot, and We're actually going to talk about one of the most devastating natural events to ever occur within the United States, and that was the eruption of Mount St. Helens on May 18th, 1980. The reason why this is tied to Bigfoot is most of you know or have heard that there were bodies of Bigfoot recovered from that eruption. I do want to make mention, tragically, we lost 57 people in that eruption. it was horrific and beyond catastrophic. And my heart goes out to those families to this day. And I want you to know that we will never forget those lives lost. So I just wanted to mention that.
And there you go. Alaska man records possible Bigfoot vocalizations while metal detecting. We nope out of there so fast. The most popular spot for Bigfoot sightings is in the Pacific Northwest in North America. This includes Northern California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and all the way up into Alaska. Many of the native people who make this region home hold this creature as sacred in this culture. Here, the entity is known most often as Sasquatch. In Alaska, the creature is occasionally called the Bushman and has been part of legendary sightings for hundreds of years. Many believe that the prevalence of Bigfoot legends in this area of the world derive from the possible presence of either Gigantopithecus, a giant ape-like creature from China of the Pleistocene, or a descendant of the same. Orangutans are also believed to have evolved from this ancient animal. But if there is Bigfoot in Alaska, this metal detector thinks he may have recorded one howling.
Down to my last target. Looks like a little wood, or what's that? Whoa, did you guys hear that? It sounded like something howling. Still hear it. Sweet little box. Boy, that freaked me out. Oh. All right, so I'm working my way back. Whoa, did you hear that? Oh man, something just threw something in the water right beside me. Oh, jeez. All right, guys, let's get out of here. I just threw something else in the water just now.
In the video, a man is out doing his last few minutes of detecting as the light around him fails. And he's in a wilderness area not far from the highway. You can hear cars in the background. You can also hear a notable howling sound. The howls and whoops continue, distracting the man from his job, and eventually making him decide it's time to get out of there. In addition to the unnerving cries, something begins tossing rocks at him, which is a well-established technique of Bigfoot when one thinks you've intruded on his territory. In the comments, viewers are split between agreeing that this sounds enough like the sounds in other Bigfoot videos to convince them, and wondering if the reason it sounds so much like that is that he just edited those sounds to this video himself. What do you think? Well, it's pretty easy to edit sounds into videos these days. Maybe too easy. Interesting, but inconclusive in my mind. And finally, video. Portland NBA team unveils Bigfoot mascot.
I have to admit, when I saw the name Douglas Fir, I thought the Blazers' new mascot was a tree.
Like Stanford
It's
University,
not.
yeah.
It turns out it is Fur, F-U-R, and making matters more confusing, they also want us to call him Dougie.
That's just a little nickname that Blaze came up for him.
All right, so introduce us.
All right, so you might have seen him if you were watching the Blazers game. The Blazers introduced Douglas Fir, who they say is a long-lost relative of the Trailblazers' 80s Bigfoot mascot. Now, according to the Blazers, Dougie Fir has been living in Forest Park. Blaze the trail cat went to Forest Park, made friends with him, and now he's back as the mascot of the Blazers, or one of them. Look for Dougie Fir all over town making new friends, but don't worry because Blaze is not going away, just sharing some of the limelight with his new best friend.
Apparently there was a huge backstory with him. Like they say he was shy. He was filling his days with solitaire eating vegan dishes and drinking cold brew, blending in with other unshaven local hikers until Blaze found him.
Very interesting. In a nod to the legendary creature said to lurk in the forests of Oregon, the NBA's Portland Trailblazers have unveiled a new Bigfoot mascot dubbed Douglas Fir. The rather sizable character made his debut on Tuesday evening prior to the team's game against the New York Knicks. In a press release announcing the arrival of the 8-foot-tall creature, the Trailblazers weaved a rather fantastic backstory for the Bigfoot, describing him as a shy hipster who had been hiding in the Oregon wilderness until being discovered by the team's other mascot, Blaze the Trail Cat, while distracted gathering sap for his latest craft brew creation. Dougie, as he has been affectionately nicknamed, is actually the second Sasquatch to roam Portland's sidelines, as the team had previously featured a similar Bigfoot character which was retired back in 1988. With his grand unveiling on Tuesday, the monstrous mascot will undoubtedly be making all manner of appearances and events going forward, and of course, be featured on an array of merchandise. The character is also not the first cryptid to leave its mark on the sports world in the Pacific Northwest, as the neighboring Washington State's NHL team, the Seattle Kraken, are named after the mythical sea monster said to terrify sailors long ago. And let's not also forget about Squatch, who was the Seattle Supersonics mascot as well. That basketball team. I don't know if Coast to Coast AM forgot about that or not, but there was Squatch for the Seattle Supersonics. So now we have a new mascot for the Trailblazers, a Sasquatch. Oh, by the way, you guys may remember I reported on the International Cryptozoology Conference a few weeks ago. Well, it's been pushed back to 2024 rather than 2023. Don't ask me why, but it has. It's going to be held next year, not this year. And that's going to do it for this week. I want to thank you very much, you guys, for tuning in. You guys are the heart of the show. I always say that, but I always mean it. And I will continue to do this as long as you guys want me to. And hey, until next week, y'all be good or be good at HBM's Crypto-Corner.